Hi babes, and welcome to Tea and Glitter, the podcast. I'm Evelina, better known as Ivy of the Les Vixens. I'm a lesbian burlesque performer, and I have spent my entire career learning how to own my sexuality, my body, my identity, and to empower others to do the same. On this podcast, I will be spilling the tea and giving you all that gay girl glitter on how to live a more peaceful, productive, and pretty life. So grab a tea. Let's get into it, and thanks for being here. Hello, everyone. This is our second episode. We made it to the second episode. I'm so happy to be here. I just finished Girls in Wonderland. For those of you who don't know what Girls in Wonderland is, it is a 4-day festival where thousands of queer women come to Orlando, Florida, and there are night parties, pool parties, after parties, more night parties, more pool parties, more after parties. It's like another club, another plane, you know that TikTok thing. Anyway. So that is Girls in Wonderland. Thousands of queer women converge, and I'm the lead dancer, and so I run all the dancers and the entertainment, and I dance at everything. My little knees are like still bruised and melted from the boxes and the pool party because the sun was just very, very hot. I'm a little dehydrated still, so bear with me. We just literally finished it like 2 days ago. And the next thing I have coming up, I had a show last night. I have a show tomorrow night, and then I fly to New Orleans for New Orleans Pride. And then Sunday I fly back and we have another show in Sarasota. So very, very busy, but I'm making time for this podcast because it is so important to me to connect. There's only so much you can do in an Instagram caption, and I have a lot more to say, a lot more to share, so that's why I'm doing Tea and Glitter, the podcast. So thanks for being here, and I'm excited to continue sharing myself, my life, and connecting with you guys. If you listened to my first episode, thank you. If you listen to this episode, thank you. Today, I am going to share my coming out story because it wouldn't be a queer podcast without that, because queer people have coming out stories. That's something that's different for us than it is for straight people. And I think it's really important to talk about our coming out stories. But with heteronormativity being the assumption, being the norm, to people just making the base assumption that someone is straight, I think sharing coming out stories is important, even though I do hope that one day we won't have coming out stories. It'll just be life. I kind of love that we have this thing that's ours. It's part of like a collective experience that queer people have. And I'm excited to share my story with you guys today. My story, honestly, is boring. Wow, I'm really setting this up. My story, there's not a lot of drama, but it's still my story, and I want to share it. And I want to share with you guys how I learned that I'm a flaming homosexual. Where to begin? God, because honestly, looking back on my life, there were a lot of signs that should have indicated that I might be gay. And I'll talk about those, and I'll let you know some of the things looking back that should have been an indicator. But I guess we'll go straight to high school. So high school, I had boyfriends, a couple boyfriends. I never slept with them. I had boyfriends, and it was all very, very chaste, very wholesome for them, unfortunately. I didn't know I was gay, right? I didn't know when I was young. I had always felt a little different, and I had always made some assumptions about myself just being a free spirit, but I never thought that I would be gay. I knew about gay people. I knew about lesbians, but the representation for lesbians was so small and still is to this day. So I didn't really see myself represented. So there wasn't like a, oh my God, that's me moment for myself, which is one of the reasons I do what I do as a performer running Les Vixens, is because I want people to have representation and see queer joy and see queer people who don't look like the stereotypes. Back to me in high school with my poor boyfriends who I never had sex with. I honestly thought that I was just a late bloomer. I thought I'm just not ready to have sex. Like, that's what adults do. I am not an adult. I am not ready for that. That is not something that I'm interested in. That seems horrifying to me. Scary, horrifying. Please, God, no. I'm not ready for that. I really don't want to do that. That's probably not a typical straight girl's reaction to the idea of, sleeping with her boyfriend. There were a lot of subtle things. There weren't these big black and white moments for me growing up that would indicate that I was queer, but looking back, all these really subtle but important and significant things. Like, for example, the thought of having sex with a boy made me feel claustrophobic, made me feel awful, made me terrified, and I really didn't want to do it. So I never did. My graduation from high school was right around the corner, and I used to go out dancing. This was before I was a performer. I used to go just dancing with my friends, and we would go out to a place called iBar and go cut a rug and have a good time and dance. And there was this girl there who I didn't know, but I could not keep my eyes off of her. She had a mohawk. She was dressed kind of like an emo kid, definitely had lots of, she had some tattoos. She had this I don't give a fuck attitude. She had this masculine energy about her, which is something that I learned later on that's something I'm very attracted to, women with like a masculine energy. And I remember being very confused about what I was feeling about her. It was this attraction, but I didn't know that it was attraction. But when I say attraction, it was like I was pulled to her. I couldn't not look at her. I kind of was mad at her. I know that sounds weird, but like I was just watching her being like, there was just like this weird craving, longing thing about her. And I hadn't even spoken to her, but I was almost like mad at her for just existing out there because she was causing all these confusing emotions that I wasn't sure I was into. And anyway, but I'm dancing, and we've seen each other a few times now. It's been a few different occasions where I'd had that experience. And I was like, oh, there's that girl. I hate her. I don't even know her. Why won't she come talk to me? And then she did. She came up to me and asked me to dance with her. And then we literally were glued together for the next 2 hours on that dance floor. It was one of the best nights of my entire life, and I felt so much. Oh my God. So we parted ways, and then she found me on social media that night and sent me a message and was like, oh, of course, I finally meet a girl I like, and she's straight, because, the way my social media looked at the time. And I wrote her back and said, well, you have this apparently straight girl thinking about you in her bed at night. Go me. So smooth, so slick. Then she asked me if I asked her if she wanted to go to this other night to go dancing. And she said, absolutely, it's a date. And I was like, it's a date? What does that even mean? Oh my God. After that night that I'd met her, we had our high school graduation rehearsal. And I remember going up to my friends and saying, I met a girl and I'm going to go on a date with her. And just being so excited, had so many butterflies. I think I was just floating around. My friends were like, what? And I was like, I didn't even notice the looks on their faces. I didn't notice that they had question marks above their heads. I was too busy floating around on a sapphic cloud 9 to even care. I really wasn't even thinking. I didn't even realize that this meant anything more significant than, oh my God, I'm going on a date and I'm so excited. It just didn't even really register at that point yet that this was something significant. Like, I knew it was significant. Like, I felt it in my bones. Like, the atoms in my body had turned to bubbles, and I was feeling all of these things, but there wasn't any fear or any what the fuck or any I shouldn't be doing this. It was just excitement, oblivion, and just all of the things. And then that week I went out with her again, and we went dancing again, and we went to take pictures in a photo booth, and I kissed her in the photo booth. Oh, I'm getting emotional. God, what a time. So I was the one who kissed her, which, as I've grown into my lesbianism, I am a assertive femme, a femdom. So this very first lesbian experience, I was already living that narrative for myself. I was already that person. Because, she had like her lip pierced and a mohawk and like all of these things. And I was the one who kissed her first. She was already out and she was very, very queer. And I was the one who made this move on her. And so my very first kiss with a girl I have a picture of it. And then it was a very sexy, tumultuous relationship that came after that, as a first love is often. I didn't question it. I did assume that I was bisexual because I've dated guys and now I'm dating a girl, so that means I'm bisexual, right? Ha 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 ha. No. Sometimes the journey to discovering that you are a full-blown lesbian, there are some stepping stones that make it feel a little more comfortable. The idea of not dating men ever seems to some to be too dramatic, too scary, too much of a commitment to an identity that they may not feel prepared for, whether it be with their own internal self, their families, whatever. For me, I just made the assumption, not because I needed it as a crutch, not because I didn't want to go full-blown into this and tell everyone and shout it from the rooftops, but I just made the assumption, which is part of the heteronormativity thing. It's like, okay, well, I'm a woman, so I should still be attracted to men, right? And like, I could tell that some men were physically attractive, but the idea of doing anything further than just like a hearty handshake made me like my stomach clench. But I still was like, oh, I guess I'm bisexual. Plot twist, full-on lesbian. But I found that out. I leaned into that during my second relationship. Anyway, back to this first relationship and everything that was kind of happening there for me. I was in a delirium of sapphic love. It was the most intense thing I'd ever experienced up until that point in my life. I would stay up all night with her. You remember when I said that the idea of having sex with a boy was like horrifying? Yeah, like second date, third date, I don't know. We definitely had sex and it was the most glorious thing ever. And my friends know this, but the first time I went down on a girl, I came up and I said, neat, like a fucking idiot. I said it out loud to her. What an idiot. It's fine. Anyway, she was still in love with me even after that, but it was neat. It was the neatest thing that I'd ever experienced, was going down on a girl. It was kind of my favorite thing ever. It felt so good and not scary, and it felt right, and we were just like two teenagers in love. I never struggled. So this is where my coming out story is a little boring. Well, maybe not boring. Maybe it's just the way it should fucking be, man. God, if only. Like, this is what I wish for people. I wish that the internal struggle didn't exist. When something is right, I just wish that people could lean into that and feel it and go with it and just let it be what it is. For me, that's how it was. I didn't question it. I didn't stop to think. I didn't beat myself up. I didn't have any internal strife. I just had a lot of lack of sleep. Oh, Lord. I'm just going to take a moment to remember those days. They were intoxicating. I told all my friends I needed to come out to my mom. I wasn't really sure how to do it. Of course, coming out to family is a whole other thing. On episode 3 of this podcast, this next episode is going to be about coming out in general. The advice that I have as a professional gay, hearing all the stories from all the queer people that I know, talking to parents. I have a lot of really good advice on how to come out, also how to deal with internalized homophobia. That's going to be another episode. But this one's about me. So back to me. Hold on, let me get some tea. Also, shout out to the babes who gave me this Starbucks cup. You guys are so sweet. I love you so much. This is also a side note. To everyone who came to Girls in Wonderland and showered me with so much love and hugs and talked to me, God, I love you so much. Thank you. You guys were the best. Where was I? Coming out to my mom. That's right. So I lived with my mom and my stepdad and my brother. I came out to my brother, and it was so anticlimactic with my brother, honestly. He was like, oh, okay. I was like, cool. Thank you. He didn't really care one way or the other. So coming out to my mom, obviously coming out to family. it's a little different. It's a little different. Even if you are comfortable with it yourself, even if you are feeling completely safe and loving yourself and you have no question about what it is that you are, the idea of coming out to family can sometimes be something that is more heartbreaking, I guess, because of the worry, not even that you'll be cast out, that they are going to disown you, any of those things, but that they will love you less, or that they will view you differently, even though you're the exact same person you've always been. And I think that was more so the fear that I had coming out to my mom and then my dad, was just not that they wouldn't accept me, but that something would change subtly and that would break my heart. But I had to do it. I had to tell them. I mean, also, like, I would be stumbling out of my bedroom with my first girlfriend at like 3 p.m. with hickeys all over our necks. Like, we were not very stealthy. So I took my mom to lunch. And remember, at this time, I still made the assumption that I was bisexual. So there was this show that my mom really, really liked. She used to watch it, called The OC. You guys remember The OC? And there was a girl on there named Marissa, I think, the main character. And then she dated a girl named Alex, right? And like, I guess Alex was lesbian, Marissa was bisexual. That, I think. I'm trying to remember. My mom loved that show, which I thought was really funny. Anyway, so I sat my mom down because I think my mom thought I was like on drugs because I was not sleeping. I was coming home at like 7 a.m. exhausted from making out and having sex with a girl all night, but my mom didn't know that. So she thought I was on drugs. And I was like, I got to tell my mom that's not drugs. It's just women, which kind of the same thing. So I took her to lunch, sat her down, and I said, Mom, I'm Marissa, and Brittany, my first girlfriend, is Alex. And then I just sat back and I said, put my little paws up, and I was like, and she's like, yeah, I know. So once again, an anticlimactic moment for this little gay girl coming out. I was super grateful that my mom handled it as well as she did. When I was growing up, my mom's two best friends was a gay couple, Nick and Corey. My mom used to go to Southern Nights back in the day, which is where I currently run my lesbian night. My mom used to go out dancing. She was a bit of a fag hag. She just thought that she would know if her daughter was gay. And this, I think, is a testament to the fact that gay people don't have a look. You can't just look at us and tell. My mom, I think the reason that she didn't think I was gay was because I'm femme. I have long hair. I love dresses. I play dress up, glitter, sparkles. And it's like, Mom, I love girly things and girls. But she was very welcoming, very accepting. My stepdad was like, at least she won't get pregnant. They were the easy one to come out to, as I dated more women and, I had to just confirm that I'm not actually bisexual. I'm a lesbian. But there really was not major strife coming out to my family. It was anticlimactic, and that's what I want for everyone. I want everyone to have that experience. It's really heartbreaking to know so many people who don't have that experience. And that's one of the reasons I'm doing this podcast, is so that you have a place to go where you feel loved and seen and understood. A lot of my vixens, some of them have not had good coming out stories. Some have, some haven't. So the vixens as a whole, we are full of different experiences about coming out and about being gay and queer. And I think that it's really important to keep having that, to keep talking about it, to keep letting you know that you are perfect and you're doing great. And even if you had a rough coming out, if you were outed, that you're going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. It's going to be great. It's going to be better than you could possibly imagine. Anyway, back to me though. I lost one friend. She was my best friend since 5th grade. We had been best friends for years and years and years. She ended up going, after high school, she went to a Christian college in Tennessee, and she ended up sending me a message and said, I don't agree with your lifestyle. I'm going to pray for you. Never contact me again. That was one of the most heartbreaking moments I've ever had. She was one of my truly best friends. She was a part of the fabric of who I am as a person, and she couldn't do it. But plot twist, she came out later in life. And I think what she was experiencing at that time was a lot of confusion because her family was very religious and she had strong feelings for me. And I think she had a lot of jealousy over my first girlfriend and couldn't handle that. And then it was kind of an easy way to end the friendship by saying that we were gross and an abomination and etc. To never contact her again. And then she ended up coming out later. And like, obviously I have no hard feelings for anyone who has struggled with someone coming out in their lives, because I understand everyone has different worldviews. Everyone experiences life differently. There's beliefs that we hold dear, and I don't agree with it, but I also have compassion for that. So I had a lot of compassion for her. I respected her wishes. I never spoke to her again until she contacted me again years later. And I dealt with that, and that was hard. But for the most part, my friends were like, yeah, well, you were always kind of a free spirit, and it kind of makes sense why you didn't want to have sex with any dude, any boyfriend, and all of those things. I'm going to reference a few other things that should have tipped me off to knowing I was gay. First and foremost, my teachers, you guys in elementary school. My 5th grade teacher, Miss Joy Noel Smith, love you. I was in love with her. I was the biggest teacher's pet. But I remember going on a field trip and she brought her boyfriend and I cried. I was so upset. How dare he come and infringe on our time with her? I was inconsolable. And I realized that's not something a straight girl would do. No. I remember my babysitters. I would plan my outfits. I would try to wear my coolest outfit, quote unquote coolest outfit, as an 8-year-old for when my babysitters would come over. And that's not something I think straight girls do. I don't think they plan their coolest outfit for their babysitter. Things like that really should have indicated that I was gay. Another reason I didn't know earlier on that I was gay was not only the lack of representation, but the fact that I am attracted to gayness, gay energy, masculine energy, women who are queer. Like, I'm very attracted to that. I've never in my life had a crush on a straight girl. Never. They just don't register for me at all as attractive. Like, I just can't. There has to be this queer energy, and that's what I'm most attracted to. I've never, ever, other than I guess my teachers, but that was different, but I've never pined over a straight girl, like a friend of mine or anything. Never. I think one of the reasons I didn't know I was gay was because I just wasn't around gay women. My friends were all straight, other than the one girl who we had like that complicated friendship. She was like high femme, which I think is also like a queer thing. When like someone's like super, super femme, sometimes that's you gay. You're not doing that for a boy. You're doing that because you're gay. That's just a theory we'll talk about at some point, I'm sure. I will be doing episodes on style and like queer labels and femme versus mask, etc. So those are going to be interesting. I'm really excited to talk about that stuff. So keep listening to the podcast. We'll get those episodes up. When I look back at the girls in my high school, the majority were very straight. I did not have a lot of gay girls at my high school. No one was out at my high school except for like one boy. That queer energy didn't really exist. But I look back at like the women that I highly admired, or the people who I had this fascination with, and they are either queer now or they were just alternative, or they had that queer energy. So I didn't have crushes on girls in high school because none of them were gay. It took meeting that girl, Brittany, with her mohawk, with her queer energy on that dance floor. And then that was my first girlfriend. So I think a lot of women don't come out until later in life because they have different assumptions about what attraction is. And that's another episode we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about queer attraction and how it's different. Anyway, lost a couple friends, had a girlfriend. This is when I watched The L Word for the first time, and I started to being exposed to queer culture and meeting more gay people because my first girlfriend was already queer. She was already out. She had gay friends. That's when I started really leaning into my identity. I didn't question it. I was just discovering it. Then she and I broke up, and then we broke up like 8 times because lesbians, right? God. Oh, good times. This is going to be so gay. Okay, are you ready for this? So she had like a mohawk, right? So she didn't wear her hair up, but she wore one of my hair ties on her wrist, right? She always had my hair tie on her wrist. That was like our thing. And like one of the times we broke up, she like took it off and like threw it in the yard, and it was so dramatic. Oh God. I was like, my hair tie. Oh God. Anyway. And then I started dating my second girlfriend, who was even more masculine, and she was older than I was by several years. She'd been out forever. That's when I really blossomed with my queerness, because I was exposed to so much more of the community, and I learned so much from her. That was probably one of my healthiest relationships I had early on. I had a lot of like tumultuous relationships after that, but that one was very healthy because she was older and was really, really intelligent, high emotional intelligence. I learned a lot from her. And I remember one time I called her and I was telling her how excited I was because I was going to Lowe's hardware store. And she's like, are you sure you're not a full-blown lesbian? Because at the time I was still claiming to be bisexual. But by the end of that relationship, I realized there's no way I could ever date a guy again. The women have just so much depth. There's just so much more. It is so right. And I was like, I am a lesbian. I'm a lesbian. I'm not bisexual. I am a lesbian. How fucking awesome. It felt so right. It felt so good. I felt like the epiphany was just always there. And it just took a while for me to be like, oh, that's what this is. I have language for it. I have a name for it. I am a lesbian. Because heteronormativity is so steeped in this culture and the assumption of straightness is so prevalent, most people would assume that you're straight first. Learning the language made it so much easier to be, right? So knowing I was a lesbian, not bisexual, knowing that I would never date a man again, ever in my entire life, knowing that I would never sleep with a man, ever, knowing that I was a lesbian was one of the most relieving, gratifying, soul-fulfilling, best realizations. The best thing that's ever happened to me. It's the best thing that has ever happened to me is to realize I'm a lesbian. I wish that was the norm for queer people, to feel so celebrated within yourself. And I hope listening to this podcast that it doesn't bum you out if that was not your experience. I don't want that at all. I'm just sharing mine, and hopefully the idea of someone being so happy that they're gay could help. So back to my coming out story, realizing I was a lesbian, super, super happy about it. Then I had to come out to my dad. Hi. Okay, so this one was much more difficult for me to come out to my dad because my dad was raised in Oklahoma. He went to church 3 times a week, and although my dad is the only one of his family who left Oklahoma, he's a Democrat, while the rest of his family staunch Republicans, I still knew that he had a lot of dogma in his heart and soul from years of church indoctrination, and he was the one that I was most worried about would love me less, would see me and feel differently about me. And the idea that he would love me any differently was the most difficult experience of my life. And so I went to go visit my dad in Nevada, in Reno. The thing is that I was going through a breakup with Brittany at the time. Right? Yes. No, what's it? Yes, I was going through a breakup with my first girlfriend at the time, and I was struggling. I was heartbroken, and I was having a hard time. So I wanted to talk to my dad about it, but I couldn't because he didn't know. And I didn't want to call Brittany Brent or something or make it seem like it was with a man. I needed him to know. So went to go visit him. He and I took a walk one night. We took a little hike, actually, and it was, he lived, I think you guys don't need to know that, but he lived by a river and like in the mountains. It was beautiful. My stepmom, she did not go with us. My stepmom also, she has a gay daughter, but she at this time had not accepted it, was not okay with it. My dad and I took a hike, and it was nighttime, and it was snowing a little bit, and there were wild horses running in this mountain. I'm just setting the scene, guys. I don't know. I thought you might want to know. It was like a real pretty moment. So I had sent him the message that my former best friend had sent about ending our friendship, not agreeing with my lifestyle, that she's going to pray for me and Brittany. Now, my dad thought that it was a different Brittany. He thought it was a friend of mine that I'd had like in middle school. So he was a little confused by the message because it was vague in why she was ending the friendship. But I said, Brittany was actually my girlfriend, who I'm currently going through a breakup with. At this time, I still thought I was bisexual. So I told him, I want you to know that I'm bisexual. And we're like hiking up this hill. And he's like, I can't believe you're telling me this when I already can't breathe. And that was just, I will always appreciate that he made a joke right then, because it lightened it up a little bit. Then we continued our hike and we talked for a while about everything. When we got back to the house, he said, let's not tell your stepmom right now. It took me a few more years to tell her because I knew that she was not into it with her own daughter. So I didn't feel comfortable for a few more years to tell her, but she figured it out before I even told her because just social media. My dad did his best. Golly, did he do his best. Bless his little cotton socks. This Oklahoma guy who wore a bolo tie to my graduation. Like, he did his very best. He also wears a flannel like nobody's business. He has the most extensive flannel collection out of anyone, all us lesbians out there. Y'all, impressive. You would love to shop his closet. And honestly, I told him, I was like, Dad, it's your flannels and the fact that I used to find your Playboys in your closet. That's why I'm gay. It's all your fault, buddy. You should have hidden those Playboys better and not worn so many flannels. But my dad really tried very hard to get on board with everything, which I thought was very valiant of him. He told me one time, because I was going through another breakup, as one does, he traveled a lot for work and he was watching some shows in his hotel room, and there was one talking about lesbians, so he stopped to watch it for research purposes. But he said that the one thing he learned from it is that lesbians date for 6 months and break up for 14 years. And I was like, Dad, that's so accurate. And he's since met some of my girlfriends. But yeah, so coming out to my dad was very difficult at the time for me emotionally, but I was not cast out. I was not any of those things. And I am eternally grateful for all of that because it gave me the ability to be free without having too much struggle. I could be myself without having to fight so much. I owned it from the start, and I've worked very hard to not just live that life for myself, to use that privilege that I have of coming out and it being easy to use that energy that I would otherwise not be able to have to create safe spaces, to create more, to talk about gay things, to do what I need to do for my community. I don't want to feel badly about not having a more dramatic coming out story because it's mine and I'm grateful for it. But I do want other people to feel safe within themselves. If you had a hard coming out, if you were outed, my heart goes out to you. I'm here for you. I hope that seeing other queer people who don't struggle with it helps you realize that you maybe don't need to struggle as hard within yourself, that you are perfect and loved, and my dad will probably let you borrow a flannel if you need it. That was my coming out story. Realizing I was gay. Wish I had known sooner. Wish I had known earlier. Wish I'd had the representation growing up. That would have made things less confusing, but I do love my personal story. I love that it was something that made sense to me and that I immediately gave myself the grace to accept it, to love that part of me, to lean into it, to see it for the gift that it is. And I'm also grateful to my family for being so great about everything. I really lucked out with all of them, and I'm very, very grateful for that. If your family has not been as accepting, my heart goes out to you. I've spoken with so many of my friends who struggled coming out. My best friend, she didn't struggle coming out. A lot of people I know didn't struggle coming out, and that gives me hope that more of you realizing you're gay ends up being something soft. It ends up being coming home. It ends up being something that is a beautiful thing for you. For me, it was coming home. It was coming fully into myself, being able to experience the full range of emotion, because dating women, holy shit, do you experience the full range of emotions. But I am so grateful. And then, I just spent the whole weekend being surrounded by thousands of queer women, living the fuck out loud, loving out loud, making out, doing all the things. And it's a beautiful thing. Queer joy is a beautiful thing. Owning who we are is a beautiful thing. And I think that it's subversive. I think it helps smash the patriarchy. The more we love that we are gay and the less we hide from it and the more we own it, the more we make it a good thing, the more we see it, view it as a strength, as a blessing, as a gift, versus something we should hide, versus something we should feel shame about, the more we learn to own it and to be happy about it, I think the better off we'll be as a community. I think the stronger we'll be, the more powerful we will be. I think that it will help future generations. If we aren't struggling with shame and we can just live out loud, like how beautiful a thing could that be? And I am so grateful that I didn't have the indoctrination. I didn't have the religious trauma, because like, fuck that, man. Fuck feeling shame for being exactly who we are. I don't want it. You shouldn't have it. And let's do our best to build each other up and provide support and love. And that's what I'm doing here on the podcast. So thank you so much. I'm going to wrap up here. I'm sure that I'll tell you more about other things about my lifetime. I do have an episode coming up about sex with girls, so keep an eye there. But don't forget to follow or subscribe or like and share and leave comments and do all of the things. It's awesome that you do that. I don't have sponsors right now, so I'll be my own sponsor. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube and all the things. And if you're watching on the YouTube channel, hi, thanks for sticking with it. And if you're listening on the podcast, thank you so much for being here. I love you endlessly. I hope you enjoyed my anticlimactic but still very significant and important coming out story. If any of my elementary school teachers are listening, yeah, it was always you. All right, I love you guys so much. Have a beautiful day. Be good to yourselves. Be good to each other. And I will see you in the next one. Okay, I love you. Bye.